I am unashamed. What about you?
Welcome back to Unashamed. I guess we'd call this a special edition of Unashamed. We got Lisa in the house. It's always a pleasure, babe, to have you.
Thank you.
Along. People love it when their wives are here. We today's episode is, we've been talking about different things that happen in life, and so we just experienced this hurricane that barreled through Florida, went up basically all the way as high as Nashville, I suppose. Did you hear from anybody?
Yeah, a lot of rain, but not. Well, I mean,
it destroyed some of your house, didn't it?
I hate to comment on because it's if you go to North Carolina and South Carolina, it's way worse. So.
And that's kind of the way we feel. So Lisa and I have a story to tell today because we went to North Carolina to do an event, and we were going to Raleigh, but we were staying in Black Mountain, which is where all the cousins are, which is where Zach lives. And so Zach was not there. He was in Louisiana and doing one of their Guy Behind Bars events. And so it was kind of odd the way it worked out. And we were supposed to do a couple of podcasts, but this storm came through. And so Lisa and I usually I'm pretty good about watching, but we got caught flat-footed because what happened was in the area we were in the mountains, before the hurricane comes through, which was a tropical storm by the time it reached North Carolina, we got about 20 plus inches of rain in 2 days.
Mm-hmm.
Just 2 days of solid, at times heavy downpour, but never less than a pretty medium-sized rain. And so, I don't know, I was getting a little nervous about it. The thing was coming. We weren't sure how bad it was going to be, in terms of, predictions on how bad the winds and stuff would be for us. But so there was just the perfect storm. And I say that in the negative way, the perfect storm. So it comes through. Well, then you've got all this soft flooding conditions with a heavy tropical storm that would just took the brunt. And then so now all these trees are blowing down. I mean, the wind, Lisa and I, it hit us about 5:30 in the morning. And I admit, we've rolled out a couple of storms here and down in Gulf Shores, but this one had some bite to it. And
it was so loud.
Yeah,
extremely loud.
I couldn't sleep. I'm up pacing around.
This thing is killing your neighbors.
Oh yeah, no doubt. And of course we don't know what's happening.
Over 100.
We're everywhere else, but we're there. I can hear trees hitting the ground, not close by, but close enough. A big, huge tree. These things are 200 foot tall. When they hit the ground, you hear it for a long way. And so I'm hearing all this go on. And, first you're just praying that, spare us. And then you start praying about the people down lower because you're thinking down the mountain, this is going to be good. Lisa and I were staying at a little house kind of pretty much close to the top. I'm praying because I was worried about a mudslide. You get in these areas like this, whenever the ground gives way, everything goes to the bottom. And so I was praying about that. And so it was a scary night. And we got out the next morning to go try to check on the cousins. And it was like a war zone. What you guys have been seeing on television.
And we had 3 kids with us, and they were asleep in the basement.
Yeah.
So all night trees were hitting, all around us. So I'd get up 2 or 3 times during the night just to go check on them. Because, we just didn't know if, it might knock a window out. We just didn't know. So
and they were sleeping?
They were sleeping, sound asleep, never woke up.
Well, we found out later, it's 3 teenage girls, our granddaughter and then 2 of the cousins, and they were up till 4, just, laughing and giggling, doing all that. Mm-hmm. So the time we were sleeping, so by the time they went to sleep is when the storm hits.
They had a better storm prep than you.
They really did. Just stay up till an hour before, and then they just slept right through the thing. But you are concerned about that kind of stuff for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So we get out, we start looking around. We're trying to get to different cousins, our cousin Grant, Melissa. These is Zach's brother and sister. We knew Zach was out of town. He was due in that morning because we were supposed to do podcasts, but
which we never did.
No.
And I actually was sitting right here
wonder where we were
at the scheduled appointed time, because the text was vague because they were giving all the details of y'all's conditions, but we were hunting. It was teal season.
Oh yeah, that's right.
I looked down and thought, ooh, that's rough, and kind of skimmed through the text.
We sent a couple of videos. You saw a couple of videos, didn't you?
Yeah.
You got through.
I missed the word.
We could get phone out till about 8 o'clock that morning, and then all of a sudden we just went dark. And Dad, it was like we were living your life. There was no cell phone, no internet, and then of course no power,
no electricity,
no water, and all that.
Phil still has that.
He still has that.
I missed the word rescheduled. So I was sitting here, and Dan, the butler, stuck his head in here, and he said, "You didn't get the memo?" I was like, "I did get the memo," and he's like, "Maybe you should read it again." They're not.
It's not happening. Yeah, so, and poor Zach. So his kids, his Ruth is his little one, and then his 2 boys. They were staying with Melissa while he was out of town. Well, then they couldn't get in.
Melissa's his sister.
Yeah, Melissa's sister. So, they couldn't get in to their kids. So Jill's freaking out, because when you're in a disaster and you're not sure how anybody is because you can't get any information, they're frightened. They're seeing what they're seeing on the news like everybody else. And so it was a really scary situation for them trying to get in. And
we couldn't get word out to anyone that we were okay.
Yeah, once we went dark, that was it.
I mean, because none of us had any kind of phones that worked. We did figure out was it Saturday morning when Ben was able to talk to Emily?
Yeah, through the satellite.
His sister-in-law, through the satellite.
By the way, there's
phone.
for those of you, Dad, you can just zone out because you'll never get this, but there's the latest operating system, iOS 18. If you download that for your phone, now, I don't like downloading the new stuff because it feels like it's too much, but in this case, we found out you have satellite texting capacity for a disaster just like this. And Ben had done it because Ben's like a, IT whiz. So he had it on his phone. And because he had it, we were able to get word out on Saturday that we couldn't make our event, that we were going. And by the way, if you were there and you're listening up in the Raleigh area, we apologize. But, based on what we're telling you, this is why we couldn't get to you to do the event. And we hate it. We've never missed an event. And what's bad, Jace, is I guess maybe I was thinking about the James 4 passage that says this in verse 13. Now listen, you who say today or tomorrow we will go to this city or that place. We will spend a year there, carry on business, make money, while you do not even know what will happen tomorrow. What is your life? You are a mist that appears for a little while and then vanishes. Instead, you ought to say, if it is the Lord's will, we will live and do this or that. As it is, you boast and brag. All such boasting is evil. Anyone then who knows the good he ought to do and does not do it sins. I wasn't boasting that, necessarily, but I did make the statement that we had never missed an event this week, which was kind of bizarre.
2 days before.
2 days before, we were talking to our agent. So,
don't boast.
Don't boast. I mean, I did say by God's will, I knocked on wood. I tried to do all the stuff, but just don't boast. You really don't know. I mean, what's going to happen tomorrow?
You don't know. I've missed a couple. One was a storm, and one was the day COVID made everything shut down.
You had an event that day.
I made it.
You were there?
Detroit, Michigan. And Michigan said no gatherings of over 30 people. And we had about 1,000 over that. So, of course, they asked me, and I was like, I say we do it, the resurrection. But I let them make the call, and so I just hung out in a little group.
So here was the deal. So we're still thinking we can get out. At this point, we don't know any information. So imagine this in today's age when you depend on your phone to give you GPS guidance. It's your navigator. It's how you get around. Nobody has a map anymore. I got one in my truck, but my truck was in Louisiana, and I'm in a rental car. Because a good map in a situation like this is the best thing you can ever have, to look at it and know the road. It's the old school way. So we're stuck, and we're trying to figure out what we're going to do. We're still a couple of days away from the event, so we're thinking we're going to be able to get out and go to the event. So we start going. First thing we try is east, because that's the way our event was. We make it about half a mile
Mhm.
on I-40 and mudslide, trees on the road, all this stuff, can't go this way. So then we're trying to find out, is there another way around? Nope, everything over there is shut down. So I said, okay. So then you start thinking, all right, what if we go south? Nope, closed. There's a river across the interstate. All right, what about north? I don't know about north. So we take off north, planning to get high enough up, maybe above the worst damage, to cut across and then go east. We get to Tennessee. We'd been driving couple hours. We get to Tennessee, and interstate has collapsed. Can't go forward. Can't go 26 north. So now that's 3 directions out of the 4, and we're blocked. So we drove 5 hours that day trying to get to this event. So we come back to North Carolina and say, well, we're going to wait one more day, and if they clear that east, maybe we can still make the event. I'm still trying to go to the event in spite of everything that's going on there. And so I said, but if we can't go east, then the one thing I think we can do is go west and go home, because from there we'd come home. So we go east, still blocked. We turn around and go west. I go about maybe 45 minutes an hour, shut down. So at this moment, I realize we're trapped. We cannot leave this area. We have no phones. We have no electricity. At this point, we don't even have a place to stay, but we do have family. And I'm thinking, there's a helplessness that comes over you in that moment, because I got half a tank of gas, and I'm thinking there's no gas stations, and there's lined along the interstates are cars who are from this area. And, it was terrible. You realize these people are not from there, and they're just in their cars. They have no family there. They have no way to get gas. They have no way to get supplies. So they're just sitting along the side of the interstate, just waiting on something to open up.
And if you're in an electric vehicle, you are doomed. There's no electricity to for you to power your vehicle with.
Yeah.
And then, if the gasoline, all right, so you couldn't get gas.
Down to horses and
there you go.
Exactly.
I saw a lot of 4-wheelers. Now, I will say this about the people I saw, Jace. They were a lot like people from around here. They're mountain people, but they're kind of redneckish, you could tell. And, man, they're out. They got chainsaws. They got 4-wheelers. And a lot of them had prepared, so they had some gasoline around so they could, do generators. And so
I've often said that in crisis and disaster, that's when the redneck is the smartest guy on the property.
And we saw it all around.
So Phil, take comfort in that.
Because you got the equipment that can help you. The problem is if you didn't plan and have some gasoline and some stuff like that, it didn't do you a lot of good.
And they helped other people. Like they would go to their neighbors, and, we saw a whole truckload of people just going from place to place, helping
the whole
other
thing
people.
was deadly.
Very deadly.
Well, I still think as of right now, there's almost 1,000 people missing.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to wind up being devastating numbers for sure.
Over 100 has lost their life.
Right.
Yeah, there'll be a lot more than that by the time.
Which later in the podcast, as we kind of talk our way through this, we've got some scriptures we want to share with folks, just, that go through difficult times. And also we want to have prayer, and also some places where you can help these folks, because it is a devastating thing. I think, Maddie, are we going to be able to get Zach on the line? All right, so we're going to try to. We're going to take a break in a minute, and then they have super spotty cell phone coverage. But if we can get Zach on for a minute, he's back.
That was going to be my question. Have we got confirmation that Zach was actually?
Zach made it out. Zach made it in the same way Lisa and I finally made it out, which is a story I'll tell you about that. That was interesting too. We'll do that on the other side of the break. So I was just on the road, Jace, this past week, three different places, 3 different states, speaking on behalf of the unborn, because they are the most defenseless among us, which is one of the reasons why that we fight for life the way we do.
You read Matthew 18, you realize that's where we all were. A baby is a gift from God.
Yeah. So we have to fight. We just got to step up. It's a battle. There's a lot of political talk about these days, but we do it because it's the right thing to do, because God has called us to defend. So Preborn, who's one of our sponsors, they have a network of clinics And when you support these guys, you're offering life and love to mothers in crisis and at-risk babies. Introducing these mothers to their child through ultrasound doubles a baby's chance at life. And that's what we're trying to do. And so many of the people that I met were people that do the ultrasound. And they told me, they were like, when they see that heartbeat, that choice goes towards that baby almost every time. Every life-saving ultrasound costs just $28, but preborn can't do it without us, the pro-life community. Please give your best gift today and sponsor as many ultrasounds as you can. All your gifts are tax deductible. If you have the means, would you consider a leadership gift to save babies in a big way? Your tax-deductible donation of $5,000 will sponsor Preborn's entire network for 24 hours, helping to rescue 200 babies. So check them out. Let's join together. Help mothers choose life. To donate, dial pound 250 and say the keyword baby. That's pound 250, keyword baby, or go to preborn.com/unashamed. That's preborn.com/unashamed. So we're still waiting on Zach. We think we're going to be able to get him. The cell phone's really spotty. But I do want to mention for you guys that are listening, Swan.Church is the church that Zach and Gordon and those guys are at. They're doing a lot of work there with the children's home and other people who are going to be helping. Our ministry, which has a relief ministry, onekingdom.org. And then, of course, SamaritansPurse.org, which is a great organization that the Grahams are in charge of, and they're based in North Carolina, so they're able to get a lot of stuff in there fast. So these are just three that are connected to us. If you want to help out, send some money, they're going to be getting supplies into people. Zach,
I don't have video. You want me to do video? I don't have video. Hey.
No. We're glad to hear your voice.
Oh man, it's a war zone.
Oh, it's bad, isn't it? I was just telling them, Zach, the story. We finally got out going 26 south toward Greenville. Is that how you got in to the area?
That's how I got in. So 40, the interstate's out 40 west and 40 east and 26 coming down. So the only way into the area, and it's just, I mean, the town our church is in, Swannanoa, is completely devastated, and we're just one of many towns. But the whole town downtown is swept away in the river. I'm talking about the land that the buildings were on is gone. Yeah. Not just the buildings, but the land itself. So yeah, I don't know. It's crazy. And no water, obviously no electricity. I think the water line, the main water line broke. I just found out. So they're saying they just informed the hospital. Now, of course, a lot of rumors are flying around, but I just heard that they informed the hospital. No water indefinitely. So yeah, it's a lot going on. So we are down in somewhere down near Charlotte. I'd loaded up and we went and got we're getting a bunch of fuel, bunch of transfer fuel tanks and going back up, and waters and food. And
I was hoping somebody could get out to supply, and you have to go so far, because even in Greenville, when Lisa and I went out, which is an hour and probably 10 or 15 minutes south of you guys, there were still, there was intermittent electricity, but there were long lines. I mean, long lines.
And they only take cash. So, I just spent, $1,500 on fuel. So obviously the cash has already run out. So we're having to find places that take credit cards. So yeah, it's scary. The children's home that Jill serves at on the board, Black Mountain Home for Children, they're stranded, and so so we're trying to get fuel and supplies and water and food into those guys. So yeah, there's a lot going on. It's really sad. I don't know how many people lost their lives, but I'm sure it's going to be.
It's going to be a lot.
Over 100 now.
Over 100 officially, but it's going to. I think Jay said there were over 1,000 still missing.
Mm-hmm. It's not good. One of the guys from our church was out there, because our church is kind of in the epicenter. We're actually, our building's standing, which is great, but it's in the epicenter of the damage, probably of one of the roughest areas, and. One of our members was rescuing people out of the water, and he saw two people, including a 5-year-old kid, get swept down the river. So it's just heart-wrenching. So we're dealing with a lot of that trauma and, PTSD that people are starting to deal with. And, it's really, really sad.
Well, Zach, for the first time, I want to tell you this. You have no idea to know this, but I apologize because I felt like we were looting your house. The night after the storm, we were looking for some candles. We were looking for something to put some water in to flush commodes, and so your house didn't have any damage, which was a blessing. And we could get to your house, so we went to your house, but we had these flashlights in our phones, and we were looking around through your house looking for different things we needed. And I said, I feel like we're looting because Zach's not here.
Yeah.
So I just want to apologize if any of your neighbors say there was somebody in your house. That was us.
No, I actually got a phone call. So or when we were
did you really?
Down out, I did. Some of our text that kind of came through somehow, but it's because Verizon kind of works. AT&T, which I have, does not work. But I will say one thing: you did leave the door unlocked. So,
sorry,
we had no way to lock it back. We didn't know where the key was. Remember, you were gonna text us and tell us where the key was, but then our phones went out.
Well, I'm glad you guys got out, and just obviously keep praying for this area. There's if you want to help. You can give. Our church will be locally on the ground doing stuff, and I'm sure when this settles, we're going to be mucking out people's homes and whatnot. Right now, it's just fuel, water, food, that kind of thing. But you can give at swan.church, and that's with one N, SWAN.church. Or you can give, I don't know the website, but the Black Mountain Home for Children. If you just Google that is an incredible ministry serving kids in our area. Jill's on the board there. That they need all the help they can get. And then probably from like kind of a meta picture of, because we're just one community of right of many. I heard Boone got hammered, Burnsville.
Yeah.
I'm hearing, and what the Grahams, Franklin and
Samaritan's Purse.
Edward, Samaritan's Purse.
Yeah.
So those are like, great places to give. It's just, in prayer.
It's going to be a while for you guys for sure. Before we let you go, Dad, would you pray for just the whole area and of course our family and for Zach, because they're going to be doing a lot of relief work for the next few days. So would you pray for?
Yeah, and Adam and Brandon are coming y'all's way too.
Okay, good.
Father, many have been caught up in there and lost their life.
Mm-hmm.
We just pray, Father, that you'd have mercy on us all and let us know that being on planet Earth, there's a lot of baggage that comes with it, and a lot of it is not good. Help us, Father. Keep our faith in you and your greatness. And we thank you for hearing our plea.
That's right.
So we love you in spite of all of this. We know it's not your doing. It's just the way it is. So help us go through this, Father. Help us to love you and to love each other, because this is a great test of whether we love one another or not. We'll prove that because it's natural things happen that's sometimes very detrimental to our being on planet Earth alive.
That's right.
Be with us, Father, and thank you that we have eternal life riding on all this.
That's right.
We love you in the name of Jesus. Amen.
Amen. All right, Zach. Well, stay safe, brother. We're praying for you. It's good to hear your voice. Tell all the family up there we said we love them as well, and to hang in there.
Well,
it'll get better at some point.
Love you guys too, and Unashamed Nation, love you guys, and just want to thank y'all in advance. I know you guys are amazing and already praying for what's going on here. So love the people that are in our community on the podcast. So thank you guys so much.
I'll send you some money, but look, don't forget you got them gold backs laying around in there somewhere. And
gotta have a little humor.
I was supposed to get the gold backs, but Jase put it, a storm hit.
They may be gone. I don't know about the gold backs. I didn't even look at the office yet. So
no, I'd get them gold backs and take over. You're like, I got something better than cash.
That's right. Amen.
All right, bro. Love you.
Guys.
Love you.
Love you.
Bye. Well, that was literally a report from inside the zone, which is again, it's a terrible situation. I will say that once they were able to clear that 26 south coming into Asheville, it has now opened the door for supplies for, the people that do that.
Our life on planet Earth is sometimes detrimental to your health.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a dangerous place, Dan.
Yep,
I mean,
it is.
the planet Earth is not we talk about it all the time in terms of being this beautiful planet we live on, but there's a lot of violent, things that happen that, we're human beings. We just have to live through so much of it. So, Jace, we like to support businesses that love America. That's our first choice. Is that a fair thing to say?
I would agree with that. And when it comes to Patriot Mobile and cell phones, we had a pretty good experience today because we split up in the duck blind.
Mm-hmm.
So for us, cell phoning each other, we weren't making a sound because we were texting. But Phil, who doesn't have a cell phone, went back to the old, "Hey, what y'all got down there?"
So you're saying we got to get down a cell phone? Is that what you're saying?
Just waiting for me to have the need for one.
So if he does, we're going with Patriot Mobile because for the last 10 years, they've been America's only Christian conservative wireless provider. They offer dependable nationwide coverage, even out in the duck line, to give you the ability to access all three major networks. You get the coverage that you're used to without funding the left, which we like that as well. When you switch to Patriot Mobile, you're letting everyone know you support free speech, religious freedom, sanctity of life, Second Amendment, our military, veterans, and first responders. And if that isn't enough, they also have 100% U.S.-based customer service that makes switching to Patriot Mobile easy. You can keep your number and your phone or upgrade. They'll help you find the best deals and a plan that fits your needs. Just go to patriotmobile.com/Phil, or you can call them at 972-PATRIOT. Right now, you get a free month when you use the offer code Phil. Join us, switch to America's only Christian conservative mobile provider, Patriot Mobile. Go to patriotmobile.com/Phil, or you can call them at 972-PATRIOT for your free month of service today.
Well, that's why even in some religious circles, they don't believe in the bodily resurrection, because their reasoning is if they believe in a bodily resurrection, as in your body can actually be raised from the dead, then they ask the question, well, how come God just doesn't fix all the physical things, that go wrong? And I only bring that up just to say that I do believe in the bodily resurrection, and I believe it symbolizes the new creation that God orchestrated, which does give us the ultimate hope in situations like this. You have the Spirit of God. We're all going to die someday in some way.
Mm-hmm.
It's just horrifying, to hear stories. A while ago, one of the producers said that, some of these people, they're like, there was a report, this woman was last seen in her house as it was floating down the river, hollering, "Help me." I mean, those are things that's hard to get your head around. But
and Zach mentioned kind of the PTSD nature of it, and I'll admit, so when we came, we had tried to get out and couldn't that night, and we come back into town, it's black dark, people are on the side of the road. And so I started getting just this heavy weight, anxious feeling on my chest as we're heading toward. We did have a bed to sleep in because our house was still there. But the thought I was having of going to that dark house and not knowing what was going to happen, the next day or the days after, it weighs on you. I mean, I'm a person of hope and faith. I never question God in this, but I will say, I had a physical and mental feeling. And so that's when we went to Zach's house and got some candles, because even if I could just have a little bit of light in that darkness, I felt a little bit better, secure.
That's the reason Jesus is referred to as the light of the world.
That's it. And that's the way I felt, Dad. And I have thought about that since. If there's from a spiritual perspective, in dark moments, you need some light. I mean, because in that moment, it just buoyed my spirit enough where I thought, okay, we get up tomorrow, it's daylight, we'll come up with another plan, And so then we wound up with family. I mean, that was another point I was going to make, because, I feel like, Jace, I've learned some lessons as I kind of sit down and reflected, knowing that we were going to talk about this on the podcast today. And one of them I thought about was Acts 2:42-47 and 4:32-35. And you remember, those were the texts when the church had just started. And so you had this idea that everybody was together. And, in this case, it was the brand new church. But listen to what it says. They devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching, to fellowship, breaking of bread, and prayer. Everyone was filled with awe, many wonders and miraculous signs. All the believers were together and had everything in common. They sold their possessions and their goods, and they gave to everyone as he had need. And you see something similar in Acts 4. And this was a totally different situation. It was not a joyful situation, but the idea that we had family. When Lisa and I went over to Ben and Melissa's house, and Ben's one of these camping, prepper type people. I knew you'd have stuff and supplies, but we sat around, we were praying, of course, we shared a meal together. And I thought, man, how do you do this without family? Whether it's a spiritual existence or in this case, a physical one, because all those people out on the interstate were sitting in those cars just hoping they could get out of there. And I thought, they don't have anybody. They're alone. They don't have any supplies. They don't have anybody they can go to. And I kind of relayed that into our spiritual existence and thought, man, we got to have community in the worst times. And babe, didn't you feel that way? We felt buoyed when we were there.
Absolutely. I mean, we drove up in Ben and Melissa's yard, and of course, Ben's outside cutting trees and,
He had about 6 trees across the driveway.
Just putting things back together as well as he can. And then Melissa's in the house. There's, they got water in their basement. So now there's towels hanging all across the front of the house, on the line outside, and anywhere they can, just air dry this stuff. But we drive up, and Ben hollers at Melissa and says, they're back.
Because every time we kept launching out to leave, we couldn't get out. So we had a place to come back to.
And so Melissa walks out on the porch and just says, well, all right, we were wondering if y'all made it out, but I guess we see you didn't. Come on, let's go eat something. So, I mean, it was just like that. You had family that just welcomed you into their home, and you just felt a relief then.
So we had an ice chest with some food in it, some ice, and some other stuff and then they had a girl living downstairs in their basement who's a college student. Well, she brings up her food. And so it's just like this text, we put all our food together and say, okay, we got this, and this, we got some waters, we got this. We had a half a case of waters. And it was just like this situation. We're just pulling together to survive,
Right.
Which you rarely get that opportunity in our life.
But it was actually, I mean, when we sat out in the chairs and just talked, so much time in life, you're just going from one thing to the next thing to the next thing, and you don't have time for those small conversations. But, those couple of days, we had time for those small conversations, and just to, talk about things that we used to do, or talk about the Bible, or, just time that we could relax and just kind of, breathe in, because it was beautiful outside, that we had blue skies. I mean,
it was devastation, but in its own beauty.
That's right.
We had Dad, you'll appreciate this. We had a crank radio. They have one of those where it's a dynamo and you crank it and you pick up a radio signal. That's how we found out the road opened up, was just old fashioned radio. So you think about all the different ways we communicate now. Probably one of the older ways of communication in America and in the world is just radio signals. And that's how we found out how to get out of there.
Yeah, we're just sitting out back.
Listen to the radio.
Listen to the radio. I was like, can we turn that radio back on? And so they turned it on. We finally found a station that would come through. And there was a girl on there, and she said, all interstates have been, closed, but we did today open up.
Just got word.
Yeah, just got word that 26 South, is that right?
Yep.
Was opened up. And so I went, ow. So he's in the house. So I'm just hollering at him. We can leave. We can get out at least.
And we didn't know. I didn't want to get my hopes up too much, but we hit it and we got through.
Yeah.
And we were out. And, I thought, man, then we started praying prayers of blessing, because now supplies could get in.
Yeah.
And that's how Zach and Jill made it.
But we also, it was a heavy thing to leave them there too.
Yeah.
To leave our family behind. And, we were able to get out, but, they still don't have power, water, food. I mean,
it's almost like a survivor's guilt.
Yeah.
That we felt because we were getting out, which is tough. And sometimes when you go through that, that's what happens. We're a big, happy family, the Robertsons, and we like to be able to talk about the importance of family. And that's why we love the folks that focus on the family, because they've been focusing on helping families for decades, and they're great at it. Jim Daly is their president. He's a good friend of ours, and he's got a podcast, and it's called Focus on the Family with Jim Daly. Every episode is designed to help you confidently guide your loved ones through the unique challenges faced by today's Christian families. With decades of trusted, compassionate stories of redemption, Jim connects you to biblically sound advice on marriage and parenting that is relatable, practical, and interesting. This isn't just another podcast, it's a lifeline for strengthening your family. So whether you're dealing with everyday issues or searching for guidance on more complex matters, Focus on the Family is there to support you every step of the way. So check them out on your favorite podcast platform, or you can visit focusonthefamilywithjimdaly.com and start making a difference in your family's life today. That's focusonthefamilywithjimdaly.com. Check them out. You won't regret it. I want to share a text from Mark chapter 6. I thought this was interesting, and we've talked about this on the podcast in the past with doing the Gospels, but in light of this storm, I thought this was interesting, and this was just another one of those little lessons that I feel like I learned from this. And you remember the setting, Jesus had just fed the 5,000 earlier in Mark 6, and the disciples didn't really grasp what he was trying to accomplish, and keep that in mind as I read this. In the verse 45, it says, immediately Jesus made his disciples get into the boat and go ahead of him to Bethsaida, while he dismissed the crowd. So all that crowd that he fed is still on one side. Now the disciples are taking a boat to go across the other. After leaving them, he went up on a mountainside to pray. When evening came, the boat was in the middle of the lake, and he was alone on land. He saw the disciples. He's up on the side of the mountain watching these guys. He saw the disciples straining at the oars because the wind was against them. About the fourth watch of the night, he went out to them walking on the lake. So it's a little squall that's come up, and the wind is there, and I'm assuming rain and everything to go with it. And so he just starts walking out there. He was about to pass by them, but when they saw him walking on the lake, they thought he was a ghost. They cried out because they all saw him and were terrified. Immediately he spoke to them and said, "Take courage. It is I. Don't be afraid." Then he climbed to the boat with them, and the wind died down. They were completely amazed, for they had not understood about the loaves. Their hearts were hardened, which was interesting that, Mark mentions that, at the end of that. And I've always thought about that because, we studied this before. Me having gone through this now, I always thought this was almost like a funny moment, like Jesus is like, I'm gonna show you boys something, and then he's gonna walk by them on the lake. Mm-hmm. But now I view it a little bit differently. Because the whole situation, they were having a hard time grasping who he was. I almost think in this situation, what he did was go out there just to say, look, I'm the real deal. You missed it on the lows, but you know what? I can do anything.
Well, also, a couple chapters before, so this was in chapter 4 of Mark, in verse 35. It says, that day when evening came, he said to the disciples, let's go over to the other side. But leaving the crowd behind, they took him along just as he was in the boat. There were also other boats with them. A furious squall came up, and the waves broke over the boat so that it was nearly swamped. Jesus was in the stern, sleeping on a cushion, which was a lot like the three kids with y'all. Mm-hmm. But maybe that's why he said, become like little children.
Yeah.
But, so he's asleep. He's obviously not worried about it. The disciples woke him and said, don't you care if we drown? Which is an interesting statement. He got up, rebuked the wind, and said to the waves, quiet, be still. Then the wind died down, and it was completely calm. And he said, why are you so afraid? Do you still have no faith? They were terrified and asked each other, who is this? Even the wind and waves obey him. So my point is, then he does the feeding of the 5,000, along with casting out demons. Then he has another moment. At some point, you would think they would they would not be terrified over seeing a figure walking across that water.
Right.
I would have thought, I think that must be the same guy who calmed the storm, who just, is Jesus. But
just took, 2 fish and 5 loaves of bread and fed up 5,000 people.
I think there's a point in here about maturity. It took the disciples quite a while to kind of get this. And even though they were seeing this happen, you would think, well, if I saw a miracle, that'd be enough for me. But that's obviously not true, because they were seeing them every day. And we're still, when you see a storm, that's real.
Mm-hmm.
And you know that you're perishable. So I just think when you put all that together, it kind of helps us on our take of how we respond to stuff like this. We're all so busy and so distracted, and we have our cell phones or whatever. And then all of a sudden, something like this happens.
Mm-hmm.
And only the things that really matter are left. I
Yep.
mean, there you are sitting around a campfire having conversations with people that seem weird because most people are distracted.
Yeah. No, you
like wondering why this happened and
Right.
what are we going to do?
Yeah.
So you tapped into it, Jase. That's exactly what I took from that. I'm glad you expanded it out to show it even more. So, I mean, Lisa and I, nobody's perfect and but we're mature Christians. We've been around a long time. We love the Lord. But we just found ourselves in a setting where we made our plans like we always do. We're at the 5th event in 10 days and we're laying everything out. And then all of a sudden, a storm of such, ferocity hits us that like I said, I even felt trapped. I mean, I felt like a physical, emotional. So I'm praying about it, but I still couldn't shake it. And so what I'm saying is we're all in those moments where we get challenged, where it's like, okay, is it real or is it not?
Right.
And so I was having a hard time sleeping. I was spending a lot of time in prayer saying, okay, Lord, I know you're here. I know you're going to take care of things. But at the same time, it challenges every part of who you are when situations get bad enough. So the reason I wanted to tell you guys that out listening is because you may have family affected by this. You're probably not listening to us today, but you may listen to this later. And just, you have to figure out, what can I take from the Almighty when I go through something like this to make me stronger?
Yeah.
And that's the way I feel now. I feel like I understand even more how difficult things are in life. But if you didn't have God, if you didn't have family, if you didn't have trust, what would you have? It'd be tough.
And also, but isn't that the way we are now? I mean, God does miracles in our lives all the time. I mean, He blesses us so much with different things. And it's like, I mean, our thing we had in May, that kind of shut us down, me having cancer. That shut us down.
Well, that'll do it.
That's exactly right. But then God blessed us. And, my doctor said, this is just going to be a little bump in the road. That's all this is going to be, is a bump in the road. And you know what? In faith, that's exactly what it was. That was just a bump in the road. Physically, I mean, I had to go through some stuff, but I mean, people go through stuff all the time.
Yeah.
So to me, we see these little things, and that was one of the things that somebody told me. Don't miss the little blessings that God will give you each and every day, the little signs that He's there, that He's listening, and that He's with you. And I mean, same thing with this, I mean, I feel the same way when Melissa walked out on that porch, and was smiling. Of course, it was also, kind of funny because we'd leave and come back. But when she walked out on that porch, it was almost like a confirmation of God saying, you have family. You're going to be okay. What more, some of these people don't even have that. So
and everybody was grimy and dirty
That's
and
right.
covered in sawdust and mud. And we weren't at our best in terms of how we looked and all that, but we were together.
that's right.
So, Jase, you made an interesting observation recently. You said that something along the lines of when we were poor and we didn't have anything, we were struggling to pay for it. Once we got famous and rich and could pay for it, then nobody wanted to take your money.
Yeah. It was kind of a strange thing. It just because you're famous you eat at a restaurant and they say, nah, we're good.
That happened to me recently. Somebody paid my check. Well, we understand there are times out there about debt because our company started, and trust me, Dad probably didn't even know it, but Mom was doing everything she could to leverage debt to be able to keep our company going. And that's what happens when you're just starting out. We get it. It also happens in your life. Lisa and I have struggled with this as well. You're staring at a stack of unpaid bills, and you start thinking, how can I earn this much and still be this far in debt? Thanks to COVID and inflation, 1 in 4 Americans have maxed out their credit cards. So you may be trapped in debt, and there seems to be no way out, but there is. Better Debt Solutions can be your guide to getting out of debt. Not all debt settlement companies are created equal. Better Debt Solutions have saved their clients over $1.5 billion. It has fast-acting strategies designed to put money back in your pocket in 1 month if you qualify for the program. You need someone to stand between you and the bill collectors to stop the threats and the harassing calls. Better Debt Solutions is going to be your partner to implement your personalized plan with one main goal: reduce your credit card and personal loan debt. Trust Better Debt Solutions to help settle your debt faster and easier than you thought possible by visiting betterdebtnow.com/Phil for your free consultation. That's betterdebtnow.com/Phil. Check them out, betterdebtnow.com/Phil.
While y'all were going through all that, my wife had an event here, and she invited 15 women, and they had to be in an age criteria. I think it was 22 to 29, to our old place that's a bed and breakfast, and longtime estate, I guess we'll call it. And so, of course, they filled up real quick. The reason only 15 is because that's how many beds there are. So all these people were perfect strangers, and you're like, what's this got to do with the storm? But I'm just going to share that life happens in various ways, and the idea was like a mentorship.
Mm-hmm.
Missy was going to like disciple these, and assuming these people are believers because they follow our family, went to social media. So I think there were 9 states represented and 15 women. So it was a whole weekend. So Missy'd give lessons. They did a little worship. So we get to the last night of it, which was Saturday night, which I guess that's the day the storm was hitting.
Friday and Saturday.
Yeah, Friday and Saturday. And so she invited them all to our house in Louisiana, and she cooked for them, and she gave them a little, Jesus sermon. Well, I'm back watching the LSU game, and she comes in and said, something weird's kind of happened. And I was like, what's that? And she's like, well, 2 of these women are just in tears, and they're wanting to be baptized. And they're not taking no for an answer. She said, not that I told them no. I just said, y'all can wait for in the morning. And she's like, that really wasn't the goal. It was a discipleship thing. It was a mentorship. She said, but throughout this process, they've had clarity on who Jesus is. And they both have said in 2 different conversations, we don't know Jesus.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what they concluded. So I was like, she was like, so do you have some waders? Because we have a pool. And I was like, well, my waders are wet because I went teal hunting. And the first thing that happened when I sat down was they filled up waders. So I was like, I'll just go with what I got on here. So we baptized. It's beautiful, a lot of tears, So I changed clothes, sit back down. Like 10 minutes later, I'm back to watch the LSU game. Missy's like, you're not going to believe this. There's another one. And I was like, I should have done an altar call before I went and changed clothes. Because now I was like, I'm running out of clothes. And she's like, what do you mean? I was like, I've been wet all day from the waiters having. So I went out there, and this woman was strange to me because she had been studying. She has a church she goes to, and she requested that she wanted to be baptized for months. And whoever the pastor was made her fill out a form on why she wanted to be baptized. And he basically said, you didn't pass it. And I was like, which made me angry.
Mm-hmm. Mhm.
And I gave a little speech. I was like, look, this is about Jesus. Jesus saves you. And this is for everyone.
Yeah.
Anytime.
Yeah.
So, because she was like, I mean, you can do this right here. We kind of got into the conversation. It doesn't matter who baptizes. But I mean, this woman, tears were just flowing down her face. And so we baptized her. But I just thought in that moment I was fully aware of the storms going on. But I thought these individuals on this intimate level, which Missy had an idea of what was going to happen here, but it was way beyond that.
Right.
It was like this was a life-altering encounter that happened to them. And I think the storm functions in that same way. I mean, everyone has a storm is my point.
Yeah,
Whether it some of these women, had been victims of just poor parenting and just all this baggage.
Yeah.
And but in the moment they thought, oh, we're going to go down to the duck people and have a good time. And next thing you know, they're introduced to Jesus in a way that they had never experienced. And I just thought it was all kind of surreal that this spiritual battle that we talk about comes in various ways and form, whether it was blue skies and rainbows, as it was my house, but a lot of trauma and turmoil, or what y'all are in.
What's funny, Jase, is if you'd had one more set of baptisms, you would have had to go Russell Brand style. Russell Brand is a British comedian who at one time was an agnostic. Now he is a Christian. He's embraced Christ this year. And I saw a video on X of he and another guy baptizing some people, and they were both in their underwear. Russell Brand and the other guy doing the baptizing, and I guess they didn't have any clothes, so they just went old school, and they were baptizing people. So that was your next thing, was you'd have been down to your skivvies, I guess.
Well, it was kind of funny because I had told Missy that story, but I was like, I mean, we literally talked about the storm, and I said, I've been wet all day, and the storm is hundreds of miles from here. But it's just because that's human nature for us, is like, if it's not happening to us, it just doesn't have the weight.
That's right.
Yeah.
But in the grand scheme of spiritual warfare, it was quite a weekend, with that in mind. And it's like some of those women were from the states that were getting hammered, which they felt terrible because they were like, we don't even know if we can get back in.
Yeah.
But meanwhile, when we do get back in, we're really ready to serve now.
You got to
get love.
You got to get it right.
I think it's important that we think about other people, and you never really know the storms that people are going through.
Yeah, exactly.
Mentally, because like you said, just people suffer from bad parenting, things that's happened to them, and they really don't know that they can forgive on one hand, but also that Jesus will forgive them.
Oh, exactly.
Which is the most important thing.
That's
right?
That's what I was
exactly
going to say.
right.
Last night, so I get a briefing. Another thing that happened this past weekend besides the storms was a buddy of mine. He was part of a mission work in a third world country, which has broken out into wars, and there's gangs going around. And there was a little group of kids in an orphanage that they were trying to protect, and that my buddy was like trying to figure out what to do, and he's like, well, I got a guy, I'm gonna let him know. And so he passed the information. Well, this guy, and my buddy was unaware this even happened, he gets a team of ex-Navy SEALs and military guy, and they go down to this country and protect that orphanage, and wind up meeting the gang leader and sharing Jesus with him. And I listened to this debriefing for about an hour last night, and I thought, and I'm not giving the details just because I want to, protect where they're at and what they're doing. But I just thought, man, we got some awesome disciples of Jesus. With all going on. They're like, yeah, we're in, and we're going to go try to save these kids. And they did. And I can't stress enough that it's a spiritual war, and whose side you're on is very important.
And you'll see those stories of relief flooding in. Let me read you one more passage before we wrap up this podcast. It's from 2 Corinthians 1. Dad read it a few podcasts back, and it's my favorite passage in moments like this. And I just want you to listen to this. if you've been affected or if you're trying to help other people, just listen to these words that Paul writes. Praise be to the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, the Father of compassion and the God of all comfort, who comforts us in all our troubles so that we can comfort those in any trouble with the comfort we ourselves have received from God. That's what Jase just described, and Lisa. For just as the sufferings of Christ flow over into our lives, so also through Christ our comfort overflows. If we are distressed, it is for your comfort and salvation. If we are comforted, it is for your comfort, which produces in you patient endurance of the same sufferings that we suffer. And our hope for you is firm, because we know that just as you share in our suffering, so you also will share in our comfort. We don't want you to be uninformed, brothers, about the hardships we suffered in the province of Asia. We were under great pressure, far beyond our ability to endure, so that we despaired even of life. Indeed, in our hearts we felt the sentence of death. Man, and I can relate to that. But this happened that we might not rely on ourselves, but on God, who raises the dead. He has delivered us from such a deadly peril, and he will deliver us. On him we have set our hope, that he will continue to deliver us as you help by your prayers. Then many will give thanks on our behalf for the gracious favor granted us in answer to the prayers of many, which is why we prayed for this situation earlier. Swan.Church, Black Mountain Christian Home, OneKingdom.org, SamaritansPurse.org. If you guys can help out, or if you're in the area, you can actually go in and help folks. It's a great time to help other people. So we pray for you guys. So sorry for those who have lost life and property, but just remember the resurrection.
Thanks for listening to the Unashamed podcast. Help us out by rating us on iTunes. And don't miss an episode by subscribing on YouTube, and be sure to click that little bell to get notified about new episodes. And for even more content that you won't get anywhere else, subscribe to Blaze TV at blazetv.com/unashamed.